Welcome to DC Plastic Surgery Boutique. Come on in. When you first walk into our office, the first thing you see is our custom designed beverage station. We always keep our beverage station stocked with coffee, water, sparkling water, and of course, champagne. We're a totally paperless office, so that means that we do all of our check-in on computers, iPads, patients do all their intake on iPads, and that lets us keep the space uncluttered. So when we were first designing the space, we put this reception desk in that corner, and our plan was to remove this fixed wall. But as they started building the space, we realized that this wall is actually filled with piping, so this wall couldn't be moved. Allison, Sasha, and Marta came up with the really creative idea of building a custom reception desk here and using that wall as a privacy screen. Plastic surgery patients tend to be very private about what they're doing, so having this privacy screen prevents you from being able to see into our waiting room, which patients really appreciate. You can see that our waiting room was designed in the style of a living room. It should feel like you're walking into your best girlfriend's living room, not like you're walking into a doctor's office waiting room. All I gave them, Allison, Marta, and Sasha, was a Pinterest board with a couple of colors. I said that I wanted my office to have elements of rose, elements of gold, some off-white. I wanted it to be girly and glamorous and modern, and they took that and turned it into this, which is just so striking when you first walk in. You see tufting all over furniture. You see it on my couch, you see it on your headboard at home, but this piece was crafted by hand. So Arminco had an artisan come in, and he truly was an artist. When this started, it was nothing but a foam board, and he started by placing each of these buttons in with a stapler, and then each of these is hand tucked. And it turned out so beautiful, and the coloring is just right, and you can tell by looking at it that it was done with a really high level of professionalism, which I love. I wanted a little pink in my office, and so we picked this pink couch, which I think gives just the perfect pop of color. It's not too much, it's not overwhelming to the space, but it adds to that girly, feminine, glamorous look that I was going for. This is not a huge office. We're not a 10,000 square foot space, we're a 1,000 square foot space. And so that means that not only did they have to maximize every bit of the space that we had, but they had to do it in such a way that you weren't crowding the space. So we had the tufted banquette built, which is right up against the walls, and then they picked these ghost chairs, which give us tons of additional seating without looking crowded at all because they're completely clear. So I thought that was a really cool design element. This is a really fun one. We were deciding what kind of rug to put in, and at first we had a regular, one of the regular rugs, and then Allison suggested at the last minute that we put in a white fur rug, which was the perfect idea because it adds texture to the space and just a little bit of fun. This is a chandelier from a company called Mooey from Illuminations in DC, and this chandelier actually has a funny story behind it. When they first designed the space, I had a vision board, and I said that I wanted a chandelier in my waiting room. That was one of my very first requests. So I picked a chandelier and I sent it to Allison and Marta, and they put it in the design. And then I was talking to a patient of mine who is also an interior designer, and I was showing her my plans, and she said, "Oh my goodness, I love these plans, it's all perfect, but who picked this chandelier? It's awful." And I was like, that is literally the only thing in the entire design that I picked. So my patient, Allison, and myself, we all went to Illuminations in DC, and we looked at lighting together, and we picked this chandelier. And this is such a delicate piece. The wiring is done in a rose gold, so it pulls in a little bit of that pink. And then the leaves are done in like a fine glass. And so it's one of those pieces that it's lighting, but it's also like a piece of art. It's so beautiful. We're in the middle of a building in Washington, DC. There's no exposed brick inside of this office. But what they did was each of these bricks is a half-width brick, and it was inlaid against a normal wall that was just like any of the other walls, and then they painted it white to create this faux brick painted wall. When we started designing the space, I wanted to incorporate blush, gold, and off-white and have those be the major colors in the space. What they did was they created custom borders on these doors so that they look paneled. And then they had them painted gold. And I feel like that just adds a little bit of that glamorous element without overpowering the space with the gold. This is Wendy, she's my office manager. Wendy's our hand holder in chief. She holds the patient's hands from the moment they arrive until after they have surgery. Our lab is where we keep our autoclave and our fridge and some of our equipment. And one of my favorite features is our Botox and champagne fridge, where we keep nothing but Botox, champagne, and Godiva chocolates. This is our consultation room. This is probably the most important room in the whole office. So if you walk into this room, you'll see the way that the design has really created a seamless experience for patients. So typically in a doctor's office, you see the doctor in their office, you go to an exam room to be examined, and then you go back to the doctor's office to talk about the procedure. And what Arminco did for me here, which I think is really cool and really transformed the way that I see patients, is that they made me an all-in-one space. So when a patient first comes in, I bring them back to the office, the patient and whoever's with them sit here, and we talk about what they need and what they want. We take a few minutes, we're comfortable, we chat, and then I have them change into a patient gown because a lot of what I do is breast and belly. Patient gowns are stored in here. Once I examine them on the exam chair, there's a mirror there where we can look at things together. There's a photo wall behind the door where I take my photos. And then I have them change back into their clothes and we sit right back here in these same seats. And now we're right back in the same space talking about the operation, talking about their options, and I'm showing them before and after photos all in the same room. This is really important because it creates a seamless experience for the patient. The patient comes into the room and has their entire consultation right here in this space. Allison and Marta chose design elements that add both really high-end design like textured wallpaper and another gorgeous chandelier, and things to maximize the space. The ceilings were already high, but they cut this tray ceiling and changed the color of the tray ceiling to be a slightly darker color than the rest of the room. And that opens the space vertically so that it feels like a bigger space than it already is. By hanging the chandelier in the room, it creates visual interest, so your eye gets drawn to this gorgeous, glamorous chandelier. And then by putting the textured wallpaper in, again, you're almost bringing home design elements into an office design, which makes patients feel really comfortable. Arminco built these cabinets for me. And what I really like about this is that because they were building the cabinets and they were also doing the design, they were able to build me cabinets that were really functional, but didn't interrupt the design of the space. So I use these cabinets obviously every day. It's where I store everything, but they're not where your eye goes when you come into the room. And I think that that really preserved the beauty of the space. This room next door is our treatment room. And this is where we do Botox, fillers. Eventually we'll have an in-office liposuction that we can do in here and minor procedures. This ceiling light I bought, and then once it arrived, we realized that the ceiling light was actually too long. It needed to be mounted on a 10-foot ceiling and not a 9-foot ceiling. And so what they did, my architect and my project manager, Louis and Sasha, did was they actually cut upwards into the ceiling and mounted this on a block that sits another foot into the ceiling. It's something that when you walk in as a patient or when I'm working as a doctor, I would never notice. But if they hadn't been able to solve that problem in a creative way, I would have had to return my light, which was not returnable. So they saved me a lot of money by doing this. Well, thank you for touring my space. I'm so excited to show it to you. This whole process has been incredible. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to Sasha, who was my architect, Allison and Marta, who did all of the interior design, Louis and his team, Saeed, who did the actual construction management. Everybody has been absolutely incredible from day one, and I'm very grateful.